What other insulation do you do? So external?
Yeah, we do external, also internal. Now, a lot of people think they lose a lot of room inside the property. Yeah, so internal wall insulation. So you're actually carrying out the internal wall on the external walls.
Okay.
So it'd be like, for example, if it's a mid-terrace property, it'd be like the front wall facing the street and then the back one.
Okay.
Living room, for example, on the back end. So it's not like you're losing a whole load of space. So it's worth looking into it, and it does help save a lot more money as well.
Yeah. So
Keeping the heat in the property.
And that's key. One of the frequently asked questions we get when it comes to insulation is, if I have internal wall insulation, will I lose half my room? I know that's a little bit of exaggeration, but like, how thick is it, and what effect really does it have on the size of the room?
I wouldn't say, I mean, it depends on the size of the room in the first place, you know. I mean, if you've got big bay windows, for example, it's not going to have any effect, hardly, really, because you're not using that space anyway.
Yeah.
But if it's a semi-detached property, so you'll be looking at more elevations of the property.
Yeah.
So the thickness is about 100 mil. We end up at about 100 mil.
Is that, say, 100 mil in total?
No, that's in 100 mil thickness on the actual insulation. That's why it's coming out that much.
So 100 mil is not, it's what, 10 centimetres?
Yeah, that's right.
It's not a great amount.
Yeah,
if you think about it, really, you're not going to notice it.
Yeah, if you don't want to do external wall insulation, and you know, it's worth thinking about internal wall insulation. It's a cheaper option if you're doing it on the GB's project, for example.
Yeah.
So you're not, you know, you might be able to just get away with paying, I don't know, sometimes it works out like a third towards it or something.
Is it? So it's cheaper for the consumer too?
Yeah, it's cheaper for the consumer.
Okay, that's good. And how do you do it then? Do you frame it and then put the insulation
Absolutely.
within the frame?
Yeah, so you've got the frame, the battens, and then the insulation goes in the membrane,
Yeah.
waterproof membrane with the plasterboards and the plaster finish.
What does the waterproof membrane do?
It prevents like damp or water getting into the insulation.
So one of the questions we get asked quite a lot is about damp when you're talking about insulation. So by putting the procedures in with the membrane and the framing of it, does that prevent the damp?
What's very important, firstly, is when the survey is carried out at the beginning of the property, in the early stages, is to make sure that there isn't already damp in the property, and if there is, that needs to be treated at that stage.
Yes.
And then once the actual installation's gone up, ventilation is very important. So we've got to make sure that the house is properly ventilated.
Because of condensation?
Absolutely.
Do you find that most damp in a property is ventilation, or is it because of obviously rising damp, or what would you say?
Currently, at the moment, I mean, it's various, it's a mixed bag, but ventilation is very, very important, and to have the proper airflow through the property is key.
Because with obviously energy efficiency and everyone to keep all the heat in the home, if it's not ventilated properly, then it's just sweating on the inside.
Yeah, you get condensation and
then
issues.
And then people are panicking then about damp.
People are drying their clothes in their houses and the windows aren't open and they're wondering what's going on.
Yeah, so
these are all the problems they're having.
But you guys, I know from the values that you have within your business, you are advising all these people and trying
Absolutely, yeah. We give them the advice that they need to keep the window open when they're especially after showering, bathing, and beat cooking.
Yeah, because we're trying to lower utility bills that much and keep all the heat in.
But at the same time, keep it well ventilated.
Yeah, it's
key. A balance. It's a balance. It's an education, I suppose, that you don't think it's going to affect your property.
Yeah.
But, you've got to look at everything.
But that's where the aftercare comes in.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the compliance with dealing with these customers and making sure that the whole process runs smoothly is just checking on them.
Yeah,
giving them the right advice and, like I said, advising them properly.
Education, it's educating the customer.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that I didn't know, and it was only when I've got involved in this industry that I've learned, it's not something I've ever thought about.
Because we don't, when when you buy a home, you know, you automatically, like you said, think, oh yes, this is it now.
Yeah.
We're here, like we haven't got to worry about everything. We got a roof over our head, but there's a lot more that goes into it,
Yeah.
you know, and like heating your home is massive, but also being efficient with keeping that heat and doing it properly so you don't have, you don't have damp is obviously a key point.
Yeah, absolutely, that's key.
What other types of insulation is there?
There's the room-in roof,
Okay.
which is again, it's like an attic roof, for example, that's been converted. So the top room's been converted into an attic, so you've got your room-in roof there. It's a similar system as the internal wall.
Yeah.
That gets insulated there. We could be like you could use like the PIR boards, the insulation boards.
So do you do all the board? So what will
Yeah.
you do? You'll put the insulation down and then board over the top of it. Is that right?
Yeah, with that, it's done ahead, so it's using special the actual boarding, so and then a plaster finish.
Okay, nice. So you'll do all that as well.
We do all of that. We also do the flat roof installations as well. And
Yeah.
flat roof installations are done from the outside.
So room-in insulation is done from the inside, and flat roof
Yeah.
insulation is done from the outside.
Outside, yeah.
Okay. Are those principles the same with regards to the thickness and?
Yes, it's about sort of 100 mil thickness, so it's quite, you know, the special materials. That's my husband's area that he deals with. What's
Okay. Yeah.
materials in depth? But yeah, that helps again to keep all the heat.
Yeah, and like it's all about keeping that heat in, but doing it so the home breathes. The home is like an ecosystem on its own, you know. You've got heating, hot water, efficiency, efficient electricity, your own electricity generation with solar, and now the insulation on top. It's getting that ecosystem to work correctly, which is efficient and keeping the home healthy.
Keeping it healthy, absolutely.
Yeah. Any tips you'd give to people when thinking that they may be eligible for grants, to do a bit of research on their own terms so that they're informed when looking into it?
You mean like to find out if they're going to be eligible?
Yeah, so like what tips, like what websites do you recommend
Yeah,
they
there's
look
the
at?
Ofgem. The Ofgem website will help and guide you on that, for sure.
So Ofgem, they're like the governing body.
Yeah. If you type in Eco4 eligibility criteria,
Is it like a calculator thing that comes up?
it'll be like a list of what qualification or who qualifies.
Oh, okay.
But also, obviously, first like I said, the first place to see is your EPC rating as well.
Yeah. So EPC rating, it's on like a chart, isn't it? An A is the very best, and it goes down to F, does it?
It goes down to F.
Yeah. So within that scale, I know the government want every home to be a C, so that
Yeah, so the Eco4 is actually about bringing it's worked on a whole house approach. So you're doing a lot of the work, be loft insulation, external wall, it could be heating controls. So it's got to be able to bring the rating up by 2 bands.
Okay. There's a minimum of 2 bands. Is
Yeah.
it not just to a C, or is it to 2 bands?
Well, it's they're most likely at E's, and then it's getting them to a C.
Okay.
Especially, you know, so that's what the Eco4 is, the whole house approach. So there's a lot of
It's a lot of aspects going into it.
aspects on that one.
Yeah. And once you get it up there for the consumer, what benefits are you seeing from your customers once they've had the full house approach?
Well, customers are definitely happier because they're firstly warmer,
Yeah.
you know. They could feel the difference, the house being warmer, and also they're reducing their bills.
Yeah. Which is
you know,
obviously a good thing to happen.
On top of the carbon, you know, emissions and stuff. So it's definitely
It's great.
better.
Yeah. So I know the insulation. Any other insulation that you want to talk about? So just the loft insulation.
I mean, the first place I'd highly recommend is to look at your loft insulation. You know, is it done? Is it done correctly? Because, like we said, heat rises, and the first place that you're going to lose heat is from your loft.
Yeah.
And then that is so important, and that will make a massive impact straight away just to get that
Yeah. So start with the loft.
Yeah.
Is there any databases that they may have moved into a new home and they don't know how the property is insulated? If there's been insulation put in those properties
Yeah.
before, is it saved on a database anywhere where the customers could look?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure if there's like historically a records of home installations, but it's funny you mention that because recently we've sort of joined with Checker Trade and
Yes.
getting a lot more private work through, and it's always the people that have just bought houses
Yes.
that are contacting us saying, "Oh, we just bought this house and we need the loft. You know, it's old insulation in there." So
Yeah.
we go out, give them a quote, get the insulation done, and they're chuffed with it,
Yeah, great.
making an impact straight away.
And that's what we want, we want to make an impact. We want people's bills to be lower, and we want consumers to be warmer and not have to,
Yeah.
be sat at home with two coats on, with one light on. That's like the big thing for me, So insulation-wise, what other aspects are involved within this grant process? I know on some homes you can do solar. You're a solar accredited
Yeah, absolutely.
company
You
as
could
well.
do- If it's an electric property, then you could look at air source heat pumps and solar.
Yes.
So that, I think it's going to kick in. I mean, it's happening now anyway, but I think that's where it's pushing for the next grant in about March next year. It was mostly to do with
A solar,
solar,
heat pumps,
renewables,
zoned heating, unvented hot water
Absolutely.
systems, split central heating. Smart controls is another
smart
big
controls. That's another big one that's been. I mean, they're using that even with the external walls, like the insulation side of things, is to upgrade them with smart controls as well.
one. Are boilers available on the grants?
See, boilers. It's the non-condensing boilers that are qualifying
Yeah.
for the grant.
So how you know if your home has a non-condensing boiler is if it's 20 years old or older, it's probably not going to be a condensing boiler. But a quick rule of thumb is to look at your boiler and you'll see like a white plastic pipe coming down from the bottom of the boiler.
Yeah, and that comes
And if
down the property.
that comes down, then that's a condensed pipe. So if it doesn't have that, then it's most likely going to be a non-condensing boiler. And if it is, you've got more chance of getting funding available for a grant and a free boiler or a free heat pump or a free grant, I
Yeah.
suppose, than if your boiler's a condensing boiler.
But then there are other grants out there that we've got to look at. So it's best to look on the internet or contact, local council and find out what other grants are available.
Yeah.
Because for boilers, I believe there is other ones as well available.
It's like the
too.
Green Deal and stuff like